Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Baggett. I'm the founder of Car Dealer Magazine, and joining me today is CAP HPI's Director of Valuations. It's Derren Martin. Derren, hello, how are you?
Hi, James. Yeah, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Now, we're here to get the very latest on used car prices. Let's start with those headline figures. How are prices looking this month?
So it's another drop in values, 1.9%, which is equivalent to about £420. Same, or very similar to the last 2 months. So we were at 1.9% during July, 2% during August, and then another 1.9% in September. So it's quite a big drop for the time of year. It's the first drop we've actually had in September since 2016, but everything has to be put into context around the increases that we've seen over the last 2.5 years, and values are still 25% above where they were before those price rises in 2021.
So we've covered it in detail with a feature this week, Derren, about what you and other experts think that prices are going to soften this year and as we continue to head to the end of 2023. But actually next year, they could start to firm up again and even rise. Perhaps we could just explain why you think that.
Yeah, it's never been more difficult to predict what's going to happen, really. It's obviously been a very difficult sort of 2 or 3 years to predict, with values going up incredibly. Start of COVID, we didn't quite know what was going to happen. So next year, we're well into this sort of shortage of the 3-year-old car. So 2.4 million cars missing from the market. That's got to have an impact. So demand will hopefully improve next year. You've got things like interest rates, which are causing issues at the moment, cost of living crisis. If that eases, which we hope it all will, and then you've got that lack of supply in the market, and that could lead to quite a stable year, and hopefully values not going down too much. But I think before that happens, we're going to have a little bit of pain towards the end of this year as more volume comes back in from September plate change registrations, and just some realignment of values, really, just because they are a little bit high. I can't really see at the moment any reasons why demand will improve over the short term. We might have to wait for January for that to happen.
Every time we post one of these videos, Darren, we get comments from people watching saying that there's a big crash coming. And I know every time we talk about this and you say there isn't that big crash coming, but perhaps we can just explain why this market is very different to the housing market. A lot of people liken cars and houses as similar purchases that people make, big ticket items, but they are very different, aren't they? And while we're seeing prices drop in the housing market, and we are starting to see it in the used car market, there are some differences there that are causing these things that we're seeing now, aren't there?
Yeah, there's lots of sort of moving parts, lots of complications to the used car market, but essentially it comes down to supply and demand. And there's supply is increasing, but there's still that shortage of cars in the market, and there's going to be that shortage of cars in the market for some time because of the pandemic, because of the semiconductor crisis, which just meant cars were on long lead times and not being produced. So we've not had a normal year for car registration since 2019. So we've got a lot less cars in the market, and it's very much demand and supply. You obviously don't really get that with the housing market. It's a big ticket purchase in the housing market, but for a car, it's very much, if there's more people that want to buy them than there are out there, then prices will go up. If there's more supply than demand, prices tend to go down, and then you get all the different nuances around different fuel types, which we've obviously seen this year, different types of vehicles, even down to sort of model and brand for franchise dealers. Although everything has a sort of an impact on each other as well in the used car market. And honestly, we're saying what we think will happen. Lots of things can change. You only need a couple of remarketers to go out and start selling their cars really, really cheaply, and that will make an impact on the market. So it's on a little bit of a knife edge, but we hope that everybody is just kind of being sensible with their pricing. We've seen some price reductions, but it's not been seismic, and that's helping the market to keep strong.
So what's causing those drops at the moment, and the ones we've had over the last couple of months? So you're predicting that there's going to be a few more over the next couple of months. Is it the fact that people are not buying, and that's pushing prices down to stimulate that demand?
The retail market's it's a bit delicate at the moment, I would say, the retail market. We speak to lots of dealers, as you can imagine, during the month, and we've had some with their heads in their hands saying, is everybody else suffering like we're suffering? It's terrible out there. You've got others that are just kind of doing okay. It's not as good as they hoped, but it's not too bad. And then you've got others that are doing really well. It's really mixed this month, but I would say as a general theme in the retail market, it's demand is not great. It's not as good as it has been for the majority of retailers over the last sort of couple of years. So I've not spoken to a single dealer group that is stocking up at the moment. So they're buying, but they're not buying in bulk. So the supply is coming through now because registrations have increased, but the demand is not mopping that up sufficiently. And you've got vendors that are thinking there's going to be more cars coming back. They know they've got more cars coming back after the September plate change, so they're having to reduce their prices a little bit to get them moving. You've got dealers that aren't wanting to stock up because they don't want to have cars sitting in their workshops. They're not buying damaged cars, anything with an engine management light on. So lots going on really, and it's just down to what cars are selling for. And it's just that the dealers aren't buying in bulk really, and there's more cars coming through, and vendors are prepared to sell them at a slightly lower price.
And what about that delay to the 2030 ban that was announced last week by the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak? How do you think that's going to impact prices? And we've seen some massive drops in EV prices in the last 9 to 10 months. Is this going to have any impacts on that? And or perhaps will it firm up the petrol and diesel prices?
Yeah, it's too far away really to have much of an impact. 2030 is still 7 years away. 2035 obviously a lot longer, and it will have an impact in the future. But there's so much that can change between now and then as well. We can have a change of government. Could even go back to 2030 at some point. I know a lot of the manufacturers are up in arms about it. I think the government's done it because they just gives them a bit more time. They didn't want to fail at it. So I can't really see that that's going to have too much of an impact. It's too far away. The ZEV mandate, so zero emission vehicles, where manufacturers have to have 22% of their cars as electric vehicles next year, that's still on track. So you're going to get a natural, well, maybe not a natural, but you're going to get an increase in electric vehicles anyway as we go up to 2030. It's just not got that cutoff. So I think that the used car market needs stimulating for EVs. All the incentives are on company car buyer, which means that they come back as sort of ex-fleet vehicles. So yeah, it's a little bit delicate, the EV market. We've seen EVs this month though, for the first time, the whole of the year, they've performed better than petrol and diesel. They've only dropped by 1% on average, whereas petrol and diesel has dropped by 2% on average. So, but within that as well, there's cars that have gone down and there's cars that have gone back up. So the Leaf, the Zoe, looking good value now. They've gone up a couple of percent this month. Dealers can buy them, put a reasonable margin on, and sell them and make some good money on those. Whereas there are others like the Aria EV6, they haven't dropped by as much this year so far, and they're now starting to drop. So you can't really summarize EVs anymore. They just become other models. And there has to be a hierarchy for those for those vehicles. We've said before that the Model 3 is a benchmark vehicle. You look at some of these cars; they're £10,000 more than a Model 3. Previously, they were a couple of grand less before all this realignment went on. So there's a lot going on in that EV world.
So there's, the EV market in particular has seen some, as you say, some big rises and some big falls. Do you think we're starting to see the stabilisation of that, and those big falls have ended? I know you've mentioned there are still some that have been adjusted, but I mean, on average, have we seen the bottom of the hockey stick, as it were?
I think so, yeah, but there's lots of moving parts within it. But if you're going to look at it overall, I can't see that we're going to get those drops again. They've come down. They now look reasonably priced. We've got things like the Mocha that's £3.5 grand less than the equivalent petrol Mocha. Those cars now look reasonably priced. As I say, the Leaf and the Zoe, they don't need to come down anymore. They're looking reasonably priced. Dealers are buying them, and that's what will keep those prices high. So yeah, I think we're at the bottom of the hockey stick, as you say, but there are some cars that still have some moves to make. Polestars come down sort of 7 or 8% in a couple of months period, just because they're now starting to come back in volume and they weren't affected so much before. So as I say, everything has to have a bit of a hierarchy, and you're not going to go and spend 5 or 10 grand more for a certain car over a different car. So something has to move in that area.
And for those people looking at buying a used car in the not too distant future, what's your advice? Is it a case of hold on or buy now before prices rise again next year?
I think it's a good time to buy. The last quarter is always a good time for a consumer to buy. There won't be too many manufacturers. Sorry, there won't be too many dealers that are stocking up though. So I think also there's some negotiation room now. Cars have been in stock for a little while, sitting on forecourts, and the consumer can negotiate and get something there. So yeah, I think it's a good time to buy. If values go up next year, they won't be going up ridiculously. They'll be fairly steady. So there's no reason to go out and panic buy now. So I think next year will be strong as well. That necessity purchase will always be there, and I think that will carry on. And it's a good time. Good time.
Derren, thank you very much, as always, for your update. It's much appreciated. We look forward to hearing what's happening in next month's update when you come back on.
Pleasure.
Good to see you. Thanks very much there to Derren Martin, Director of Valuations for Trade Experts Cap HPI. Now, for more videos like this one, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified when they next come out. For the latest on used car prices, visit our website. It's cardealermagazine.co.uk and click on the used car tab at the top of the page. And lastly, a reminder that nominations for this year's used car awards close on October the 2nd. So get them in ASAP by visiting our website and using the UCA 23 tab at the top of the page. They take a few minutes to complete, and entry is free of charge. Right, I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Goodbye.